So now I am going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Miss Olawunmi Esan. Miss Olawunmi Esan, if you're there, please go ahead and turn on your video as I read your bio. Um, Ms. Olawunmi Esan is a trained psychologist and sex therapist who specializes in helping couples and individuals improve intimacy and enjoy sexual pleasure, connection, and fulfillment. With a robust educational foundation comprising a bachelor's and master's degree in psychology and an advanced diploma in counseling and certifications in psychosexual therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy and family systems engineering. Ooh, you got a lot, okay? Olawunmi embodies a fusion of academic excellence and an astute grasp of human behavior and relationships. She has honed her experience over 15 years of dedicated study in psychology and sexuality and a decade long professional practice. Her commitment to the field extends beyond practice. For years, she has lectured at esteemed professional institutions such as the Institution of Family Engineering and Development and ADI College of Counseling and Psychotherapy. Her unwavering dedication has impacted lives far and wide, transcending boundaries to impact lives and bring positive transformations. Her mission remains steadfast to create a world where sexual wellness is understood, embraced, and celebrated as an essential aspect of human happiness, and to train and equip aspiring professionals to propagate this vital message. She is the founder of the University of Sex. Wow, we need to learn more about that. University of Sex. Ooh. Africa's foremost personal sex coaching academy, designed to equip individuals with resources, techniques, and strategies for wholesome and maximum sexual pleasure. Wow. She's a member of the African Network of Professional Counselors, the Counseling Association of Nigeria, and is a lead therapist at the Thriving Family International, an organization focused on providing counseling and therapy for personal and family life success. Please let's welcome Ms. Olawunmi. So I know you cannot speak, but you can raise your hand, give a hand clap in the chat to our speaker. She's going to speak to us very briefly on a few tips to building sexual intimacy and having a great sex life. And once she's done with that, we'll dive into Q&A. So over to you, Miss Olawunmi.
Thank you so much, Lola. Thank you for having me, Jesus House. It's a pleasure, it's my utmost pleasure to be here. And thank you for that wonderful introduction as well. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about some tips, to help you have great sex. Just like Lola said, I've been doing this for years, and some of the things that I've come to understand in the course of my working with, people over the years, over a decade now, is that sex doesn't start in the bedroom. And what do I mean? I want us to go back to where it all started, like the origin. When I say sex doesn't start in the bedroom, I don't mean, oh, it starts in the kitchen. It starts at the beginning of the day. That's not what I mean. I mean that we have to go back to the origin. If you want to have great sex, it's important that you start from the place of transforming your mind. Now, one of the biggest root causes of sexual problems that we have today is how we are taught about sex, is how we've been taught to think about sex. So I don't know if anybody here grew up able to, I grew up having conversations about sex with their parents. So I don't know if anybody here, if you're in the comments, you can just say hi. If you grew up and if you, when you were growing up, you sat with your parents and you said, Mommy, what is sex? Daddy, what is sex? And they said, oh, okay. This is, and they explained it to you in an age appropriate way. Or did they just tell you, where did you hear that from? What kind of rubbish are you asking me? You're getting spoiled, right? And whether we like it or not, we say a lot of times, we say a lot of people didn't receive sex ed, but the truth is that we did. Whether it was silence, whether it was positive, whether it was negative, we received. And what happened, and if you look at how a lot of people who are adults today grow up, there was a lot of negativity and fear-based messages about sex, about impurity, about if you let a boy touch you, you get pregnant. If you touch a girl, your life is spoiled, all of those things, right? And those things did something very significant. It put our sexuality in a negative light. Our sexuality that is designed to be an integral part of our humanness was put in a negative light for many people growing up, right? And even growing up, hearing those things, one of the things it also taught was this is not something you talk about. This is not something you ask about. And guess what? We get married, and all of a sudden, sex that we haven't spoken about for years, sex that we've been, programmed to think of negatively for years, all of a sudden, we're supposed to start liking it, wanting it, giving fire in the bedroom, and all of those things, right? But you see that there's no proper transition period. There's no transitioning from that place of, negativity around sex to a place of, oh, now I can feel more positively about sex, right? You find that a lot of people are still in that place where they're struggling sexually because I mean, if you look at what programming for years does to your mind, it doesn't change overnight, right? And so one of the things that needs to happen if you're going to have a really good sex life is that you need to be able to transform your mind. The limiting beliefs that you've had, you need to be able to transform your mind. Sex is not shameful, it's not immoral, it's not dirty. Sex is an amazing gift from God and it's something that we should enjoy. I have so many people that I work with, and again, I'm saying people around, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and people still come and say, do you know that I still have hang-ups about sex because of how I was raised when it came to sex? And so that transformation, transforming the mind has not happened. And that's something that needs to happen if you're going to enjoy a great sex life. So ultimately, going back to the beginning, sex has to start from you transforming your mind. Great sex has to start from you transforming your mind, knowing that this is an amazing gift from God and accepting that amazing gift from God. And honestly, the way we have been socialized to understand sex needs to be properly reevaluated. And I say this all the time. The second thing I'm going to say is this. I know I have just about 10 minutes, but the second thing I'm going to say is this. It's very important that you understand who you are with. Sex is not as easy as we think it is. It's not simply about penis and vagina, but it's also not as hard as we think it is when we have the right tools. Now, it's important to understand who you're with because, and I say this to people all the time, the person standing in front of you, however they present sexually on the surface, is informed by a lot of things. They're coming from somewhere. There's history. The person standing in front of you so if the person standing in front of you says, oh, I don't enjoy sex. It's not just about what they're saying. It's not just how they present, but about what has happened in their lives. It's about history. It's about beliefs. It's about their learnings. It's about their experiences. It's about other people's experiences that they've had. It's interesting, but so many people's sex lives are also impacted by other people's experiences that they hear, or they're privy to, right? It's about their sexual socialization, all of those things. So when you come to bed, there are a lot of things that come with you to bed. And so I think that when we relate with our spouses on the surface, right, and expect that, oh, sex is going to be good, or I don't know why you don't want sex and all of that, we don't take into account the intricacies and all of the factors that had come into play in that person's sexuality. So imagine somebody saying, I don't like sex. The person grew up hearing, if you get pregnant, your life is over, right? And then the person, grew up learning, oh, you must abstain from sex, oh, it's impure, it's this, it's that, and sex is very associated with immorality. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with abstinence, right? But I believe that the message should be passed in a way whereby there's a balance, right? And so this person goes from if you have sex, you're going to get pregnant, to sex is impure, to maybe one auntie telling her when she's eventually about to get married, just give your husband sex. See, oh, men like sex. So when you just get married, just make sure you're giving your husband sex. And nobody is saying anything about her. And then she gets into the marriage, she's a virgin, she experiences pain, all of these things. And then those are experiences. So if you look at everything that has happened, right? And you look at somebody like that, the person says, I don't like sex. It makes more sense. It makes absolutely more sense, right? And I'm using an example of a woman, but it's not just women. I was talking to a private client and she said to me, she said, whenever she initiates sex with her husband, he usually recoils. And then she'd be like, ah, but she be men said they like it when women initiate sex. What's going on with this man, right? And as you know, we started to work together. The man then opened up to say that he was sexually abused as a child, right? And whenever the woman, his wife, comes to him, he feels triggered. So imagine that. Imagine that the thought process is men like the women to initiate, blah, blah, blah. And then you're now with a husband and you're expecting to be able to do that. And then you do that. And then it's met with that kind of reaction. But if you don't understand where this person is coming from, it's difficult for you to be able to get into that place where both of you are having great sex because there's a good level of understanding between both of you. So you can now shift, you can now, pivot, you can now say, okay, what can we do? Because sex is not a one size fits all. It's not and will never be a community project because we are very unique in how we present sexually. Our experiences are so unique, right? And again, looking at it, when you hear a lot of men say, oh, I want my wife to initiate sex. I've worked with people who say, I don't want my wife to initiate sex. I feel emasculated as a man when my wife initiates sex. Do you understand? So you have to understand the person that you're with. If you do, it really helps you. It really helps you in the space of developing your couple sexual style together and enjoying better sexual experiences, enjoying great sex and things like that. And of course, the third one I'm going to say, I think I don't know if I've overshot my time. Allow, am I still good?
You're good. You
Oh,
can give the third one.
okay, beautiful. Okay, so the third one I'm going to say is nurturing your relationship. And so you see, I started with I'm talking about tips to help you have great sex, but I don't know if you've noticed that I haven't said anything about the bedroom yet. Because these foundational things are very important. A lot of times when we're thinking, oh, great sex, most times we're thinking, how do we do scissor style on the bed? How do we jump on the ceiling? How do we hold the burglary proof? How do we do this, right? But you find that a lot of foundational things are not being looked at. And those are the things that impact whether or not you have last great sex that is sustained even throughout the course of your marriage. So the third thing is, of course, nurturing your relationship. Again, we can be different, but our differences do not necessarily have to alienate us, right? But if you have a relationship that is nurturing, where you can create an enabling environment that allows everybody to table their desires, their thoughts, their needs without shame or judgment, that's something that really, really helps the relationship and really enhances the sex life, right? So the question is, does your relationship make room for that kind of free expression and vulnerability? Are you able to express yourself, or do you feel like with my spouse I have to just keep quiet and not say what I feel? I don't think my spouse can take this and things like that. If your relationship is suffering, you cannot have great sex, right? If your relationship is suffering, you cannot have great sex. If you don't treat each other well outside of the bedroom, how can you be cold outside the bedroom and then expect hot action in the bedroom? It just doesn't make sense. And so it's very important that couples are catering to their relationships outside of the bedroom in order to have, great sex in the bedroom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You shared some really great tips on, having a great sex life and intimacy. And it's very interesting that you didn't talk about the bedroom. I was really expecting, you need to do foreplay, but you didn't even talk about any of those things. So thank you. Thank you so much. We are going to be jumping into Q&A, but before we do that, we have another poll that is going to be launched. Um, and then please answer as you see it coming on your screen. Once we're done with the polls, we're going to jump into a Q&A session. There is a Q&A box that you can drop your questions. You can also drop questions in there anonymously, or you can put questions in the chat room. The chat is now enabled, and apologies for it being disabled earlier on. But please answer the questions that you see on the poll. Is this poll 2 or poll 3? Okay, that's fine. We'll just do poll 3. Um, Number 1, how likely are you and your spouse to try new sex positions? Very likely, very unlikely, Sorry, 1 second. Very unlikely, unlikely, somewhat likely, very likely. Okay, second question. Would you rather have scheduled sex or spontaneous sex? Looks like spontaneous is winning right now. All right, we would end the polls very quickly. Sorry, in like 30 seconds, we'll end the poll. We have about 60% participation right now. All right, we can end the poll. It looks like the participation is ending, and then share the results. All right, so how likely are you and your spouse to try new positions? Somewhat likely, very likely. Okay, looks like our audience are definitely ready to try on positions. They are not doing the boring one position that they that a lot of couples default to. So kudos to everyone. Second question, would you rather have scheduled or spontaneous? Looks like most people would rather have spontaneous sex instead of scheduling it. Awesome. Thank you all so much for participating in that. All right, we can stop sharing. Thank you. All right, so we're going to dive into the Q&A session. We have a lot of juicy questions that have come through. And again, please feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Also wanted to mention that Miss Olawunmi is married. She's been married for 12 years. She has two lovely children as well. And before we get into the Q&A, would you mind sharing with us why you decided to get into this? You're muted.
Okay, yeah, so I've always been interested in sex. Even as a younger child growing up, for the longest time I thought I was going to be sex educating the African child, because I'm very passionate about that as well. So that was the angle of my interest when I was much younger, you know. And then as I grew, of course I studied psychology and all of those things. I then started to get this interest in, you know, adult sexuality, married sex, and all of that. But at a point, I was like, okay, I was doing it, getting my certifications and all of those things. And then by the time I had my first child, she was about 5.2 kilos, right? She was 5.2 kg. She was that big, right? And that should be about 11 pounds, thereabouts, right?
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
that was my first. And and it was a vaginal birth.
Ooh, child.
So after
This
having that
baby
kind
was
of big baby, I
reconstruction.
started asking everybody, what do you do with a vagina that has birthed a baby this big? And people were just like, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Nobody, I mean, people were embarrassed that I was asking about my vagina. Okay. And of course, eventually I found my solution. And at that time, I was also praying to God, God, how do you want me to do this? Where do you want me to really move? How do you want me to move in this? And then at that time, God said to me, this is what I want you to focus on: couples, marriage, you know, helping them enjoy sex and marriage. And I said, okay, beautiful. But at that time, when I had that challenge, it just proved to me that a lot of people have struggles that they don't know who to go to. And even when they try to voice out, they're either ashamed or they're silenced and what have you. And then it just dawned on me that, you know, this thing that you have in your hands is huge. A lot of people need this help, this expertise that you have. And the rest is history.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, 11-pound baby. Ooh. I want to know, we want to know what the things that you did to reconstruct your vagina back into place. But we can discuss that later. All right, so let's jump in. We are just going to go right ahead because you know how Q&A goes. So many questions and we never have enough time. All right, so the first question says, is it healthy practice to let my husband have sex with me while I just lay there when I'm tired? Or is it healthier practice to reschedule for when I can participate?
Okay. All right. So, ideally, sex is definitely much better when both partners are participating, right? And so if it's the woman laying there and the man just having the sex, of course, this is one of the things I've come to realize working with couples and men especially as well. it's very interesting that for men, the woman's pleasure is part of their pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the woman is not enjoying it, it detracts from the pleasure for them, right? And so going ahead and just lying there is as good as saying no, right? But again, these things happen, and from the place of consideration, I'm a very big believer in consideration, right?
Mm-hmm.
If she's not in the mood, how can you get her in the mood? Is there a possibility of that happening? Right? As opposed to just surrendering, lying there, just do what you have to do, and when you have to just go away. Right? If she's not in the mood, how can you get her in the mood? Right? And
Mm-hmm.
if it's a point where she feels like this is not something that I'm interested in today, okay, can we explore some other time? Is that possible? Right. Again, if you look at it, our definition of sex is largely intercourse, penis
Mm-hmm.
and vagina, right? But if we expand our minds just a little bit more, is it possible that we can actually have sex without penetration happening? Yes. If you look at the sexual cycle itself, we go from excitement to desire to arousal and all of those things to orgasm and all of those things. Every single part of that journey can happen without the penis going anywhere near the vagina. And so sometimes in the spirit of consideration, okay, she's tired, maybe another day. From the other angle, there could also be consideration, okay, maybe I don't feel like having intercourse, but can we explore something else? As opposed to just lying down and just say, okay, just do what you have to do. Because at the end of the day, he's not likely going to enjoy it. You are definitely not enjoying it. So what's the point? So how can we create that middle point in a way that it works for both of us? So that's what I'll say.
Middle points. Can you expand on that? What middle points is there? Because I want to learn too. Because sometimes I know I'm tired and I'm just like, please have your way. I don't have time for this. So can you explain what that middle point could
Yes.
possibly
So
be?
what I said about expanding the definition of sex, right? And so if you are not in the space to have intercourse, perhaps can would a hand job suffice? Do you
Okay.
understand? Can we use a hand job today and then at another time we have sex? But again, remember what I said about consideration from the man's part. There will be times where he considers that she's tired, let her sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where she considers that, okay, he wants it, right? Let me give him. But if I'm not in the space for intercourse, can we explore something else? Can we do a hand job? If oral sex is on the menu for us, can that happen? Do you understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
things like that are options and alternatives that people can explore. And of course, there's also the part about she's not in the mood now. Is there something you can do that can get her in the mood? Is there something that you can do that can get her there? Okay, does she need to relax? Do you need to maybe massage her back, give her a back rub, let her take a bath or something, right? And this also goes both ways actually, because it's also nice. A man also should be getting back rubs and foot rubs and stuff like that.
I was about to say you're speaking my language, massage. Yes, please bring it on. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, being able to just have that consideration as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So next question. So one of the poll questions talked about the frequency of sex. So a lot of the questions we were getting actually were around frequency. I know a lot of people have different responses to that, but how often do you feel like married couples should be having sex?
Okay. Okay. So I like to, when I answer this question, I like to err on the side of caution because I know that once people hear a number, they want to run with it. Say, hey, you see, yeah, she said like 4 times. Why are you only doing once? What happened? Right? And so I usually like to err on the side of caution. Again, the thing is this, it is not about everybody else. It's about the couple, right? And what I usually tell people is, what is the happy number for you guys? So if somebody wants 5 times and another person says, I want 3 times, okay, can we do 4? Would that be a happy compromise for both of you, right? And that's what matters, because do you know that we have couples that have sex once a week and they are both okay with it. They're satisfied. As in, they don't feel sexually starved. They don't feel touch starved. They don't feel anything. They're just good. Like once a week, we are okay. So who are we to now say that they are not okay, right? So whatever it is that is the happy number for the couple, what then matters basically is just the couple, right? If there's now a discrepancy between them, that's usually where the issue is, not necessarily what every other person is doing, right? So the point is, can we now find a happy number? again, from the first question, what I had said was sex is not limited to intercourse. And I think that's a major hang up for a lot of people, right? Because if you expand your mind beyond intercourse, you might even have sex 7 times a week, or maybe
Mm,
even 14 times. We don't know.
that's true.
Right? Because if the options on the table, today you do a hand job, tomorrow you do erotic massage, tomorrow you do something else. Do you understand? Next tomorrow you do oral sex, then maybe another day you do intercourse. Do you get? But you're just
Yeah.
having fun, right? And it's not limited to everybody trusting, everybody doing missionary and one leg on the shoulder. I mean, all the time. You understand? So
Thank you.
even expanding that definition of sex sometimes can even help.
Right, right. I like that. I think, like you said, it's specific to the couple. It's not what is everybody else doing. What
Yeah,
are we okay with as far as frequency? If we're okay
absolutely.
with twice, so we're okay with every day, whatever we're okay with.
Yes.
And switching it up, not just thinking that it's only going to be this particular way that we're going to have sex penetration. There are other ways
Yes,
that we can.
exactly.
Awesome. And then you mentioned positions, which is a good segue into another question that we had. Someone asked that how come I only truly enjoy one position? Is that a problem, or should I just keep focusing on that position? And this was a lady that mentioned this. She
Okay.
noted that this is a woman. And then she second question was, please help my husband understand that if he doesn't focus on my pleasure, I have no reason to look forward to the next session.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start from the second question, recency effect. Okay. So, I mean, again, saying please help my husband understand. The truth is, how do I put this? Okay, let me explain something, right? This cycle. You have anticipation, experience, and then motivation, right? Anticipation is everything that happens before the experience. So for
Mhm.
some people, anticipation can be positive. I'm looking forward to it. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And for some people, it can be negative. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not interested, right? Now, if you look at the next, so we have anticipation, and the next thing is the experience. Now, for some people, anticipation can be negative if the experience is negative.
Mm.
Do you get?
Yeah.
So the experience itself can influence anticipation. So if the experience is positive, there's a higher likelihood that the anticipation will be positive,
So,
right? If the experience is negative, it definitely would have affect anticipation and motivation afterwards, right? And so if there's no pleasure for the person, if the woman doesn't enjoy the experience, or even, I mean, if anybody at all doesn't enjoy the experience, the question is, why would they want to do more of that, right?
yes.
And so if you want to, in cases like that, how you want to evaluate the experiences, what is it about our experiences that you don't really enjoy? Are there things that you enjoy? This is where you now break it down and say, okay, but when we say sex, it's not just intercourse. Are there in the entire cycle, in the entire journey, how do you know some couples they have it down to like a science? They'll kiss for 2 minutes, they'll press the breast for another 2 minutes.
Hey, if it works, why not? So, mm,
And then somebody will stroke the penis for another 2 minutes, and then okay, I think we're ready, we're good to go, right? It's just they just have it down to science, right? But the point is, if you're exploring more, you can then say, so if someone tells me I don't enjoy sex, I say, okay, for the sake of this conversation, I'm not limiting sex to intercourse. I'm limiting sex to everything that gives you pleasure. So walk me on that journey and tell me what parts you enjoy and what parts don't you enjoy. Because when people say they don't enjoy sex, more often than we just throw out the baby with the bathwater. You don't enjoy sex, you don't enjoy sex. And it's not necessarily true. Some people enjoy some parts of it. Some people enjoy the foreplay. Some people enjoy their bodies being touched a certain way. Some people enjoy different parts of it, but maybe they don't enjoy a specific part of it, right?
mhm.
Then we just say, oh, I don't enjoy sex. Because again, definition of sex is intercourse, and then we just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But if the man then understands, oh, if this is what you enjoy, this is what you like, this is what you don't like. Okay, how can we improve on the things that you don't like, things that you don't currently enjoy? How can we enhance that experience? And how can we also feature more of the things that you like? Because when the experience is positive, anticipation is, sorry, motivation is also likely to be positive. Then going to the first
First
question
question.
about the positions where she says
Show me.
she likes you. Okay. So this is what again, I don't know who this person is. I don't know how extensively she has explored. One of the things I've come to notice is that people tend to settle into certain familiar positions, right? And are not exploring a whole lot more. So a lot of couples have like three, maybe four, If they are nice, maybe 5. If they are if they like to explore, maybe 5 positions that they really enjoy, right? But more often than not, people have maybe like 2 or 3, and then they tend to stick with that, right? So we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. I feel that it might help you to explore more because there's this universe of there's so many possibilities, right? And so don't limit yourself to just one position because it's good to find what works. Don't get me wrong, right? But don't limit yourself to that alone. You want to explore other things because if you feel, oh, this is just the only thing that works, if you close your mind to other things, even when you try them, you probably won't be feeling them because again, your mind is already close to them, right? So if you can open up just a little more and say, okay, let's even see what's possible. You never know. You just do another different position and then it's something else. So I encourage you to explore. I mean, different positions, check out, look for resources that, that are clean, show, positions and stuff like that that you can explore. And, just take some time with your husband and say, babe, the focus is not sex. Let's just explore. I just want to see, can we do Jackie Chan today? Usually tomorrow? Can we do?
So basically, explore. Don't settle on that one.
Exactly,
And I think
exactly. And see, you never can tell. You might find 2 more or 10 more that you like.
I think sometimes what I've seen is that when people try another position and it's awkward or it didn't really was hard, then they
Yes, yes,
shy. Let's
yes.
go back to what we like. So
Yeah,
maybe going beyond that and keep going. You never
yes.
know.
Exactly. Because the thing is that I always say to people, don't knock something until you try it like at least 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
right? Because the first time it have not worked, but as you adapt to it, as you try it again, you might see that it works. It's just like a baby trying to walk. So the first time they try to walk, they fall. If they say, okay, no, I'm just sitting down, I'm not walking again, they're never going to walk. Right. So they keep trying, they keep trying. So I'm not saying get stuck on a position that doesn't work for you. If you try, you can explore here and there, and then explore other ones as well, as opposed to just staying stuck on one. It's good to have a fave, right? It's fine, but just explore as well so that you don't just limit the possibilities of pleasure, even for you as a woman.
Okay. And do you have any, which maybe you can share later, any resources on where people can see the different positions? Should they just look for books or should they look for
Okay.
it online?
All right. So I actually have a book that details that has sexual positions that couples can do. It also has activities. So it's like a tool. It's an activity book. So it's a tool that you can pick up and do chapter 2 today. And then, in fact, someone was telling me last week, the lady was like, she just got married and then she got the book and then she's tried 3 chapters and then her husband is like, Jesus, where did you learn all these things from? So yeah, we have that resource. It's called, I think it's even here. Okay, it's here. So I have that. It's called Sexcapades. I don't see
Okay.
it. But yeah.
Okay. Can we access that here in the US?
Um, okay, so long story. Amazon said the book was too sexy for Amazon.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
we're currently shipping from Nigeria, but we're also trying to make arrangements where we can like bulk ship to one place and then it can be dispersed to different locations. So perhaps if we have a lot of people that want it, perhaps we can ship it to maybe even the church if the church permits.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Okay, awesome. Yes, we'll definitely explore that um, as one of the resources. Thank you so much for sharing on that. All right, so next question. Can you provide tips on how husbands can help their wives achieve orgasms? And we have a few questions on orgasms, so I'm going to add um, another question to this. But
Okay.
being told that sex toys are not advisable in marriage because it can interfere with the natural bond between a husband and a wife. However, most husbands do not have the patience to get their wives to climax. As a godly woman seeking to honor God in marriage, can you provide some tips on how married women can enjoy sex God's way? And there's another
Okay.
question that asks, like, how do you handle a spouse that, okay, this is probably the next phase, but how do
Okay.
you handle a spouse that orgasms too quickly? So this one,
Okay.
first question is, how can we achieve regular orgasms?
Orgasm. How can the man help the woman to
How
do
can the
that?
man, the woman, get there? And then the other one,
Okay.
they're coming too quickly. What's going on? All right.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start with the one of how can the man help the woman achieve orgasm. But I'm going to say one thing first before I go into how can the man help the woman. I have to say this. As women, we are not passive participants in pleasure or sex, right? We have our bodies like God. it is only in a woman's body that you have a clitoris, like an organ that was just created just for your pleasure. Like it doesn't do anything there. Like God was just creating you on its own. And I say, my daughter, I'm just gonna dash you this one, and that's all he does. Right? As if I mean, our bodies are built for so much pleasure. Is it the ears? Is it the neck? Is it the breast, the nipples, the back? I mean, again, this can be different for different people, but there's so much pleasure potential that we cannot afford to be passive participants and expect the man to, do everything. I mean, it's good for him to be able to help you do that, but it's not 100% his responsibility. Do you understand? So if he's touching you and all of that, you are active. You are okay, that feels good. And you are letting him understand because it's your body. So it's just like someone coming to your house and saying, "Where's your kitchen?" Say, "I don't know." "Where's your toilet?" "I don't know." "How do you like this?" "I don't know." Explore together and then let him know what feels good. Because some women for instance, some women will orgasm solely from the stimulation of the clitoris, right? A lot of women will orgasm solely from stimulation of the clitoris, right? Some women will orgasm with penetration. Some women, their best combination is clitoral touch and then sucking the breast at the same time. Like that would just send them to cloud nine, right? And so you have to be able, when you are in the place of exploration together as a couple, you are also giving feedback. Okay, this one feels good. This feels good. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Okay, do you know that I was almost close to coming when we did that? And you are also very active in that space, and also being very cognizant of what pleasure feels like for you and telling him because he doesn't know. He knows what it feels like for him. And I tell women this all the time. Look, when a man is having sex, I mean, when your husband is having sex with you, right? He's, for lack of a better word, he's hustling for his orgasm, right? He's like, the man is trusting thing like this. He's carrying your leg up. Because he knows what feels good. He knows what feels good for him, and he's doing it. Do you understand? He's going and doing what feels good. And then you are just lying down there and say, "Uncle, are you not going to take me there? Uncle, uncle."
Oh,
Right? So yes, the man can help, help understanding, and of course, you are also an active participant in this, helping him also understand that, okay, for instance, maybe do you know that I really enjoy pleasure when maybe you are playing with my breast, and then maybe when you add the clitoris, that one really feels good. Or I orgasm when you give me oral sex, or I orgasm when you use your hands and stuff like that, right? And so another thing that I find is a lot of times if people have sex and then maybe the man comes before the woman, right, and the man is done, the innocent brother is done. He's ejaculated. I mean, except if he's a really young husband that will have another erection almost immediately, right? More often than not, it takes a bit of time for the erection to come again. So he likely would not be able to go a second round immediately. And then the woman is left high and dry. But the truth is that again, the man has a role to play in this because he has to be able to listen to what you're saying and be a willing participant in this. But you also have a role to play as a woman to say, okay, you've come, but I've not come. And me, I want to come. Will you use your hands? Will you use your mouth? Do you understand? Let's
yeah.
say these things because as couples, we should be able to have these conversations. And not that we'll now run to the toilet and now go and finish off by ourselves. It's not good. You're not helping him. Exactly. Do you understand? So teach him. He has come before you, but that's not the only way he can get you to come, right? You can ask him, "I'm not done, I'm not there yet, and I still want to come." And then encourage him to play with you, use his hands, use his mouth, whatever it is that you want him to use, and so that you also come at the end of the day. So my point is you are both active participants. It's not just the man's role to give you an orgasm, right? You're both active participants in this um um you know pleasure play as well. The
Yeah.
second one was about how do you help someone who comes too fast.
Yes.
With this, I want to believe the question is from a lady, probably asking how to help the man not come too fast.
Yes. I'm not sure if it's a lady, but
Okay, okay, all right, because there are actually ladies that come very fast, although it's not as common as men. So let me address this from the angle of the man. All right. So if the man is the one who comes fast, because that's usually more common than the lady who comes too fast. So more often than not, if a man is coming too fast, he probably has premature ejaculation or quick ejaculation or something, right? And it could have medical causes, it could have psychological causes, it could be about his lifestyle and what have you, right? And so you want to be able to, I mean, understand what, and this is not just the woman understanding now, because the man must also know, right? You probably go and see a doctor, go and run some tests. What is the root cause of the quick ejaculation, right? That's something that, has to be done. So this is not necessarily just the woman. The man also has to, do some investigations to know what exactly is going on, right? Now, another thing that can also happen is if you know that it takes this long for a woman to go from arousal to orgasm, and for the man maybe it takes this long, right? If 3/4 of this journey for the woman is foreplay, don't go and start penetration here. Do you understand? Allow the foreplay to, if she enjoys foreplay, allow the foreplay to be extensive, such that by the time you penetrate, she has a much shorter time to orgasm, right? So the journey is shorter, and then your journey might also be short, but it's not so much of a problem at that point. But if you are starting here, and that's when she's just climbing up, and then you come, my brother, it's not good, don't do that. So that's some of the things. But again, it's very important to check if root causes, medical root causes and stuff like that. Things like that, very, very, very important to check. And that's usually the onus is on the man. I must say though, there's this running joke that I have that women usually come into sessions. So I have lots of women, I have couples, but I hardly, the only time I see men for the most part is when something is going on with their erections. So erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation, they're even the one chasing me over and down. When is our next session? When is
our next session? But otherwise, no.
So I hardly see men come in and say, I want to improve, I want to do this, I want to do that. I get more women do that. I even take women in groups, stuff like that. So I get more women do that. But men, when is something wrong in that direction? My God.
It's like the end of the world.
Yeah, so it's very important to them. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I like the fact that you mentioned that, the women they have to speak up. You pretty much have to communicate. You have to say, I like this, I'm not liking this, so that you can actually, get there, and it can help you get there.
Yes.
And I like that you mentioned that even though he has ejaculated, does not mean that that's the end. Like
Absolutely.
he can do other things to help you get there.
Yes. Yes.
So I appreciate that. And then I appreciate you also as talking about um premature what's it
Ejaculation. Yes.
ejaculation and premature and
Erectile dysfunction.
erectile dysfunction, because there's a question that we received on erectile dysfunction that I wanted to also share with you and see if you can answer that as well. How do you deal with a husband who has erectile dysfunction, has refused to go for treatment, and will discuss it with his wife, and now their marriage has been sexless for 4 years? What should the wife do?
So that's a very, very, an extremely tough place to be. Especially when the wife wants to have sex, right? It's an extremely tough place to be. And like I said before, a lot of men, most men don't play with their erections. I've not actually seen any man that plays with his erections, right? So it can be a very sensitive topic for men when their erections are not working the way they should, right? And especially in our society and in many societies, it's almost as if the man's masculinity and his erection go hand in hand. And so if he's not able to have or achieve or sustain his erections, a lot of men might feel like, oh, I don't feel like I'm a man. I feel like I'm less of a man because of that, right? And in cases like that, it's a very sensitive topic. And this is what I found in the course of my work over all these years, is that most men who have erectile issues like that, and have been having it for some time, usually would get to the point where they start to avoid sex. So they start to resort to avoidance because they don't want to feel like failures. Nobody wants to go to a place where they feel like a failure and keep going there, right? And so most men will start to resort to avoidance, right? And so even when the wife wants sex, whether he can use work, whatever it is, I'm not in the mood, I'm tired, his work, is all of those things, right? But those things are basically crutches, right? But the point is, if this marriage is important, we have to be at the space where we can be very, very vulnerable about the sexual problems that we have. And of course, that's where communication comes in. That's where nurturing the relationship where people can be open, right? So your erections are not working fine. Okay, it's fine. What else can we do? What can we do about it? Right? Now, let me tell you one thing. When I work with men that have erectile issues, one of the biggest things for them is the fact that they can't satisfy their women. So there's the issue with, oh, I feel like less of a man. And then there's the other one with, I can't satisfy her. And you know what, one thing that happens, if those erectile issues start to happen over and over and over again, it gets to the point where the woman is also tired. And then when it happens, what happens? She just turns away. But she's like, that happened again. Oh my God, that body language, even if she says nothing, that body language is damning. It has killed self-esteem. Do you understand? And so what we then tend to see is whatever the cause of the erectile issue, right? It could be physiological, it could be, having to do with the body, it could be lifestyle, it could be psychological. But one of the things that I find is whatever the cause of the issue, performance anxiety starts to perpetuate it, right? And when you are anxious, you don't need an erection. Your brain does not differentiate between real anxiety and perceived anxiety. It's just like when you see your favorite food in front of you, you're salivating, right? If the food is not in front of you and you think about it, you are salivating. The response is the same, whether or not the food is in. You've given your brain a mental picture. When your brain senses anxiety, whether it's real or perceived, it will react in the same way. And when you are anxious, ideally, you want to run, you want to fight, or you freeze, right? And at that point, you're not, if you want to fight someone, you don't need an erection. You don't need an erection to fight anybody. You don't need an erection to run away. So because that performance anxiety starts to happen and then it's happening all over again, and then it goes to the doctor, hey, am I going to be able to do this? And the brain senses anxiety again. So it's a vicious cycle. And then the brain takes blood away from the penis. So even if he could achieve, he's not able to sustain, because once the brain senses anxiety, it will draw blood away from where it doesn't need to be and send it to the muscles, because that's what you need to activate when you're anxious. Right? So I find that for a lot of people, it is the performance anxiety that is a perpetuating factor. And more often than not, when I work with clients, once we're able to remove that performance anxiety, they're more often than, their results are usually fantastic. Except, of course, when we have like medical courses and stuff, and you have to refer them to a doctor, and then we have like a multifaceted intervention approach. But more often than not, it's performance anxiety that is the culprit. And once that is taken out of the equation, they're fine. They're fine. So for the woman, what you want to do is, again, the onus is on the man to find a solution. But I also know that a lot of men start to resort to avoidance because they don't want to be in that place of what they call failure, right? And so for the woman, what you want to do is be very supportive, right? Be supportive of him, also, your body language. I get it, right? I get it. And you want to be very supportive of him. You want to be able to have easy conversations around it. It's not easy, especially when it's one-sided. If the man is avoiding it, it's not easy for the woman to it might not be necessarily easy for that woman to have that conversation, right? But again, gradually, maybe he tries, maybe instead of asking for intercourse, for instance, you could say, oh, let's just play, let's just touch each other's bodies, right? It takes a bit of pressure off him that, okay, we're not going to have sex. Okay, we're not going to have intercourse. Okay, let's touch each other's bodies. And then gradually you can start to move a little more. Okay, as you get more comfortable with touch over time, you can explore, deeper forms of touch. And then as he starts to get comfortable with that, and he starts to open up, there's a likelihood that he will start to open up because now he's in a place of ease. There's no pressure to perform. There's no threat of intercourse happening. There's no failure session that is going to happen. As that starts to happen, the man can perhaps start to open up, and then you guys can have that conversation. Maybe then see a doctor, see a professional. But I always say this to people, look, if you've tried to work on stuff and it's not working, please see a professional. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the different result.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like it's very important to try to seek professional assistance. And some
Yes.
the help can be medical or non-medical. And you mentioned, the anxiety and all of that.
Yes, the psychological part of it. Yes.
Yeah, so that's really important. But I know the conversation can be a pretty difficult conversation to have between spouses. And one of the other questions that we had is, it says, what is the best way to introduce a conversation about sex with your spouse so as not to cause them to be defensive or offended? So I can
Okay.
imagine whether it's erectile dysfunction,
Or any other conversation
anything
not to talk
related to
about.
sex,
Yeah.
sometimes it's very difficult to bring that up, whether it's the guy or the lady. Do you have any tips on how we can make this conversation easier with spouses?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I usually say is start with the end in sight. What are you trying to achieve with this conversation? Do you want to lambast and rubbish the person, or do you want to have a conversation with a productive outcome? So start with the end in mind. And one of the approaches I like is the sandwich technique, where you say something positive, you put the room for improvement in the middle, and then you close with something positive that the person has done as well, right? Oh, I like how you touch me. I really enjoy, if you spend some more time playing with my breasts, and then you close it. I really enjoy our time together and I want us to do more of that together. That's less threatening to anybody than saying, just the way you touch me, just nonsense. Just touch me anyhow. How do you want me to
So you're always watching the same place all the time.
Exactly. Right. So being able to use that sandwich approach where you have like a positive and then you put the room for improvement in the middle and then you close with a positive. It's a good buffer. It's a good, it's a soft landing.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Another question. Is it okay for a woman to ignore her husband's sexual needs because her husband is sick? The husband
Okay for a woman to
ignore her husband's sexual needs because the husband is sick. The
to
husband
ignore his sexual needs.
to ignore his sexual needs because he's sick. So the woman is asking that, or I guess it's the man actually asking, is it okay
Mm.
for a woman to ignore his own sexual needs because he's sick, like ill, I
Okay.
guess. The husband come too quickly. Okay, so that's one question. And then another
Okay.
question is, how can you get the woman to be more interested in having sex? Yeah. So
Okay.
anyways, it seems like the husband is not well and the woman is depriving him.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
All
really
right.
sure what
So
type
okay, so if you have a case where the man is not feeling well, I mean it could be one of many things. She
I'm
could be
sorry.
okay, all right.
Sorry. I think I read it wrong. So the
Okay.
husband comes too quickly. And when he has a chance, he comes like once a month. Okay, so it seems like he's maybe ejaculation issues. So it
Okay.
sounds like he only has ejaculation once a month. And how can you get his spouse to be, I guess, to
More interested in sex. Okay. All right. Um, again, I don't I he ejaculates quickly and then maybe sometimes ejaculates once a month or something like that. It's a bit vague, Sha, but let me take a stab at it. Um, you know what we had mentioned before about sex is not limited to intercourse, right? Can we explore the forms of pleasure that the woman enjoys, right? So do you want to ask her what are the things that you enjoy, and can we explore some of these things as opposed to in addition to or as part of our sex life as a couple, let's explore some of these things as well. Let's bring the things that you enjoy on the table. And I think that feeds into the second question of how do you get her to enjoy sex? I must say this, that it's very important that couples understand that for each person, there's a pathway to pleasure. For some
Mhm.
people, their pathway to pleasure is like really quick, right? Any small thing, they're good. So let me explain it like this. When we think of sexual desire, sorry, I've gone into Professor Esan mode.
No, it's good.
So when we think of sexual desire, we think of sexual desire as being only spontaneous. So your body just does giz giz. And then you're like, okay, let's go. And that's what we call spontaneous sexual desire, where the desire, of course, comes spontaneously. But for the most part, we think that that is what sexual desire should look like. But the truth is, that is one way sexual desire can look like. But There's another way that it can look like. So if you look at the spontaneous person, the person has the desire for sex, and then the body shows the physiological evidence of that desire, which is arousal. So desire, arousal, then you pursue sexual stimulus, right? Now we have what we call responsive sexual desire. Now, for the responsive person, so I said spontaneous, the person has the desire and then arousal, right? For the responsive person, it's different. Arousal comes before desire. So it means that for the person who is responsive, there has to be an arousal stimulus before the desire wakes up. It's as if their desire is taking a nap, but something has to wake it up, right? Now, I like to say it like this in layman terms. The spontaneous person is the person that wants to go to the party, and they know that when they get there, they will enjoy it. The responsive person is the person that is not even thinking about the party, but if you take them there, they're very likely going to enjoy it. Do you understand? So the point is, how do you take them to the party, right? How do you make them want to go to the party? But again, okay, so let me continue that explanation. So now, if you have somebody who is responsive, if there is nothing that elicits that desire in them, they can go for a long time and not even initiate sex or have. So these are kind of people that their partners, their spouses will say, and you don't initiate sex, but when we have sex, you enjoy it, right? And so they can go for a long time and they're not even thinking about it. But if an arousal stimulus comes into play, right, the desire will wake up. And for some people, the arousal stimulus can be direct touch. It can be even when their partner starts touching them, then they're like, oh, okay, I'm at the party. It's not a bad idea. Okay, I think I like it. I like the music that is playing, right? And then some people, it's feeling connected outside of the bedroom, right? So how are we connecting outside of the bedroom? There are people that, without that, they don't feel able to open up themselves in the bedroom fully, right? And there's this thing where we say, oh, maybe women are denying men and things like that. But the truth is, I know people use sex as a bargaining chip, which is for me a horrible, horrible thing. But the truth is, there are people that genuinely cannot feel that desire to open up if they feel very disconnected from you. It's not wickedness. It's not starving you. It's just that the pathway to desire for them is different and you have not understood that. Just at the beginning, at the introduction, I was saying you have to understand the person that you're with. And so if you understand that this person's pathway to desire is this, and you want more sex, why wouldn't you do that? Do you understand? And so sometimes I might have groups of women that I work with. So 10, 20 friends come together and then they say, okay, take us on your program for like 6 weeks and stuff like that. And then we work together. And then in those programs, I talk to women about their pathway to desire, and then we start to explore these things. And you see women saying different things. So you would think that all women respond the same way, but no. Some women, their pathway to desire is touch. Some women is, feeling connected outside of the bedroom. Some women, they're just watching a romantic movie. It's not porn or anything, just watching a romantic movie where the man is doing, and then, and that elicits feeling of tenderness and softness for them, and then they want to express sexually. Do you understand? So you find that people have different pathways to pleasure, and you have to understand the person that you're with. And so if you're someone who is married, if you're someone who is married to someone who is responsive, for instance, and this happens a lot, where one partner is spontaneous, the other one is responsive, and then there's a whole lot of discrepancy in desire, like, oh my God, what's going on here? You don't initiate and all of that, right? The truth is, if you then understand that, oh, I'm responsive, it's also not the other person's sole responsibility to bring the arousal stimulus to life. Do you understand? Even you as a responsive person, you know that, okay, when this person connects with me, I enjoyed. Nothing stops you from initiating that connection. Nothing stops you from picking up the phone and say, oh, how's your day going? And then you guys start to talk and gist and connect. Nothing stops you from going around the house and then going to hug the person. Do you understand? So it's not about understanding that you are responsive does not mean, allow me to say I'm responsible. I resonate with that. Now you are going to be arousing me, because if you don't, desire is not going to wake up, right? But the truth is, you also have a responsibility. Say, okay, I think I identify as someone who may be responsive. What are the things that I find that put me in that mind space for pleasure? And then you say, okay, this kind of, if connecting with my husband puts me, or my wife puts me in that pathway for pleasure, in that mind space for pleasure, what stops me from initiating it? What stops me from going to give him a hug, or give her a hug, or give him a kiss? nothing stops you from doing that. But the point is, once you're able to recognize, and a lot of people mistake it for low libido. Some people say, oh, because they don't even think about it, they think they have low libido. More often than not, we find that people are responsive. And this is not even just limited to women. There are men like that as well, where it's the man that is responsive and the woman is spontaneous as well. So we have all of those dynamics. So again, going back to that question, it's just how do you find her pathway to pleasure so that she's more interested in sex with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for taking us through the textbook explanation and then the layman explanation. Because I was just like, huh? Arousal? What? Sharing that. Um, there's another question before we kind of segue into some other aspects. I'm recently married and I'm married as a virgin at 42 years old. When I have sex with my husband, it's painful. How can I improve to enjoy sex? How can I enjoy sex, I guess, and for the vagina to widen for him to be able to penetrate?
Okay, all right. So right off the bat, I want to say that if you're experiencing pain, you're not likely to experience pleasure, right? And the more you keep having sex that is painful, the more it gets to a point where your brain starts to make that connection. Sex is painful, and your body can start to shut down naturally. So please, if you're experiencing pain, please don't keep having sex that is painful. That's not good for you, right? You could see your doctor, or you could see a sex therapist about this. But right here, one of the things I don't have full visibility on the reason for the pain, because pain can be, I mean, so many different things, right? And so, but she said something about the vagina expanding. So what I'm getting is that probably pain at the point of penetration and when it's inside because it's not fully expanded. So one of the things you can do is perhaps get a dilator, buy a dilator. So a dilator is like, and it's like, how do I put, it's like a medical apparatus, not necessarily medical, but I mean, they've done other forms of it. The doctors use it as well, but they've done other forms of it that are softer silicone, right? And use it to gradually expand the vagina. So it just goes into the vagina. It's like what's it called? Let me say, it's like a vagina expander, for lack of a better. It's not that it expands it for the world to see. It's just like, so it has
So the
different
teeth
sizes.
gap
So smaller size, yes, size 1, size 2, size 3. So you gradually go through the sizes, right? So you have to insert it and then use some lubricant, insert it. You can do it yourself. Your husband can do it for you. It's not a sex toy. It's a medical apparatus. It's a medical device, if you will. So you can go through the different sizes gradually till you get to the size where, you are able to put it inside, right? And then it can come in freely. So the bigger, as you graduate from the smaller sizes to the bigger size, it makes penetration easier. So that's something that you can try. But again, I don't have all of that information about the origin of the pain or what it is about. But if you need to see a doctor or a sex therapist, that will also be helpful. But the dilator is something that also helps.
I think because she mentioned she's a virgin, so maybe because she hasn't, is tight, so
Okay.
she's not sure. So
Okay.
the expander analogy, and then maybe I'm not a sex therapist, but I know people always talk about lube, and then you probably need to
Yes.
do a lot of foreplay and get aroused and all of that.
Yeah.
Um, to
So
help.
let me just address that quickly. So you said she's a virgin. I
Yes.
want to say she should go with the dilator, right? So I've had, oh my God, so many. Do you know that I've had many couples that got married? They got married when one was a virgin, and I've had situations where people did not achieve penetration for 6 years, 10 years, 8 years, 12 years. I've had lots of that happen, right? And
I
one of the
talk
things,
about it very often, so I'm glad you're.
okay, you talk about it. Okay, beautiful.
People don't talk about it
Okay,
very.
people, no, it's true. People don't talk about it very often. I've seen cases where the marriage has just gone south because of that. And it's something that is just very easily resolvable, right? So the whole virgin thing, lube is good, but sometimes you find that even with lube, it's still painful.
Mhm.
Even with foreplay, for some people, it's still painful. So she should try the dilator and progress through the stages. That should help. But if she finds that she needs further help or further assistance after that, she can see a doctor, see a sex therapist to help.
So a question on the dilator, do you wear it like during the day or is it only when you're about to have
No,
sex?
no, you don't use it when it's not you don't use it when you train with it.
Okay, so
Right? So you don't wear it and just leave it in. So you like maybe sit down, legs open wide, and then you insert it, gradually insert it, bring it out, insert it, bring it out. When you're done with the first size, Yes, exactly. It starts to help and to loosen the muscles and expand it. And so when you're done with the first size, you go to the next size. And so as you are able to start taking more and more to the size that maybe is commensurate with the man's penis,
Oh,
then you see that it becomes, easier.
oh, wow. Thank you for sharing. I think this is my first time of hearing about a dilator, so thank you for sharing on that.
So
Um, Before we segue into the next set of questions, we have another poll. So I'm going to initiate the poll. Um, so please, everyone, if you can see the poll, please go ahead and answer the questions. Can we all see it? Okay, so the first question, on average, how long does an orgasm last for men? This is like general knowledge. This isn't, we Googled this to figure out the answer to this. 1 to 10 seconds, 10 to 30 seconds, 30 to 50 seconds. Secondly, same question, but for women, how long do we think it lasts for women? 1 to 12 seconds, 13 to 50, 1 to 2 minutes. And then the third question, on average, how often do men think about sex in a day? 8 times, 19 times, 35 times, 60 times. Men always be thinking about sex. Always. When they wake up, they're thinking about sex. The last question, how often do you think women think about sex in a day? Women think about so many things. I feel like we think about children, household, food, before sex. Women, sex. Sex, and then I need to use the bathroom or something like that. Please go ahead and answer. We will stop the poll shortly and share the share the responses. Okay, getting there. All right. So on average, how long does an orgasm last for men? So most people thought 1 to 10 seconds. So the answer is actually 10 to 30 seconds is what we found is on average for men. For women, yeah, I think we got it right. So it's actually no, I think most people said 1 to 2 minutes, but it's 13 to 50 seconds is on average for the women. For the men, how often do they think about sex? So we got it right. So the majority said 19, and that's correct. So most men think about it 19 times. And then for the women, most people said 2 times. Well, women actually think about it 10 times on average in a day. So I see this. Do we you see how many we see people in the audience here? We won't think about sex twice. Please, we need to up that. We can do better.
you know what I find interesting, just if you don't mind,
Oh yeah.
um, I think when it comes to this as well, you think about sex. What do you do with it? What do you do with the thought? What do you do with the desire? Because a lot of times we're thinking that desire has to be when our body does just. But what if desire is also the thought? Because we're looking for the flames, we're looking for the fire when there are flickers, right? And so if sex comes to mind, whether it's 2 times or 10 times a day, as a woman, what are you doing with it? Do you pick up your phone and say, hey, babe, I just remember what we did last night. So, and in fact, I want to repeat this evening. Or do you just do you just suppress it and just let it go? Because desire is like a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
The more you use it, the more the desire starts to come to the fore. But the less you use it, the more you suppress it, the less it starts to come because you don't even recognize it in the first place. So, I mean, for the women here, whether it's 2 times, once, 5 times, 10 times, maybe even 50, when it comes to mind, what do you do with it?
Right, right. That's actually really important. Okay. All right. So the next question has to do with sex after children, which you did kind of allude to that in the beginning
Yeah.
when you had your first child. So we've had some questions about how do you continue with sex after children? How can it be enjoyable? Some people ask the question about how do you deal with your body changes and how it affects sex. Because of course, when you have a baby, your vagina is not the same anymore. Your body isn't the same anymore. Your breasts are not the same anymore. Things like that. Like, how do you deal with that, and how can you still make sex enjoyable? And I think even some women feel
Yeah,
like they're no longer sexy. How do you,
yeah.
enjoy sex and you know,
Yeah. So starting from the second question, the reason a lot of women no longer feel sexy after they've had children is because society has defined standards of sexy for us.
mm,
So you have to look at, before it was really slender, wave thin, look like a model. Now everybody's getting BBLs, and now the definition is different. You must have a big bum, you must have a slim waist, all these things. It's
yeah,
just been shifting over time. Society has defined standards for us. And that's why um there's this issue with body confidence for a lot of women, especially after having children, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to look how you want to look, right? But you also have to acknowledge the fact that your body has gone through a magnificent, miraculous process. You literally birthed another human being. And if nothing, you want to thank your body for what it did, right? And enjoy your body, right? You're pregnant, you have a baby, your breasts are likely fuller. Enjoy it, right? Enjoy every season of your life, of your body, of your changes, right? There's some women that after they give birth, that's when they're wanting more sex. Some women, that's when they're wanting less sex. Some women, that's when they find that they start to orgasm. Some women find that, oh, that where they used to enjoy pleasure before, they don't enjoy pleasure there again, and then they shut down. So many things happen. But I find it dangerous when women just go into that mode where they just shut down, right? As opposed to saying, okay, this is happening now. How can I live in the moment? How can I be in my present and still enjoy my body and celebrate myself because my body has just done a miraculous thing? It doesn't matter whether you are 1 month postpartum or 2 years postpartum, right? Your body has done something miraculous, right? It's important that you start to take the power from the hands of society and take the power back and define what sexy is to you. Define what you want that to look like. It may not be the body that you have right now, but define it. And every day, the body that you're in, please celebrate it. Highlight the features that you have, right? Highlight the things that you enjoy. Some people, they are pregnant, their skin is glowing. Some people, they are pregnant, they have pimples, but they've got boobs. I mean, just enjoy your body. Some people, they have bigger bum. Whatever it is, just enjoy your body and be your own definition and your standard of beauty. That's what I would say to women because our bodies just do very miraculous things. It's just
mhm.
mind blowing, honestly. And then back to sex after kids. That one is a tricky one, but honestly, it's very, 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 very doable. So when I had my first child, me and my husband. Now, I have to say this. Before having our first child, I said, somebody said bigger tummy. Go, how do you enjoy that? There are some cultures that big tummy is a sign of beauty. So maybe
Uh,
don't mind me. So I mean, it's okay to want to, like I said, it's okay to want to work on yourself, right? But enjoy the path. If you're constantly,
so
berating yourself for how you look, it doesn't help you. So the things that you focus on will grow. If you're constantly berating yourself for how you look, how does it help you? You will consistently be in a state of feeling negative towards yourself. But if you choose to focus on what is positive while you are working on what you want to work on, it's a much better approach to embracing your body, embracing the season, and then moving into another season if that's what you want to do as a woman, right? So going back to the part about the having kids, and so when I got pregnant with my first child, I'd already determined, I said, I'm not going to put any child before my husband. So when we're going to have kids, we're going to take care of those children equally, right? And I'm not going to put any child before my husband. And I made that, what's it called, commitment, but my husband had to follow through. So if I made that commitment, I said, I'm not going to put any child before my husband. And then we now had the kids. And then my husband will say, she be at the mother, and go and do this, go and do that, go and do that. How would that commitment really be sustained? Because I'm overwhelmed. You have said go and do this. But my husband and I had that conversation, and my husband is a very hands-on father. Sometimes I say he's even a better dad than I am a mom. I don't know. But my
that's
husband
it.
is very hands-on. So even by the time we had the baby, my husband is hands-on. He's like, oh, you go and rest. I'll take care of the baby. I will feed her. I will do this, you know. And so because of his contribution, it was easy for me to stay true to that commitment. Because it's one thing to make a commitment, is another thing for the other person to make it easy for you to commit, to stay true to it. So his commitment really helped me, and that was big. So till today, now my kids are, you know, at least they're old enough to fend for, they should go and look for jobs. But now they even know that mommy and daddy, they are like this. They just know that mommy and daddy are like this. They're like their own people. Like sometimes they just go to hotels, grandma is around. So and so this leads into support system. So if you have a support system, please use it. Don't be superwoman or superman. If you have a support system, please use it. Whether it's a nanny, whether it's a daycare, whether it's family, please use a support system if you have it. So sometimes we take them to grandma's house or grandma is around. We just say like, oh, we're going to a hotel for a couple of days, blah, blah, blah. And then like, oh, my daughter is like, okay, mommy and daddy are going to hotel. Okay, that's fine. Enjoy yourselves. Don't worry, grandma will take care of. So they know that that's our thing. That's what we do, right? And you know what is interesting? We are modeling these things for these children,
Yeah.
right? Our children will learn from us what a loving relationship or what a relationship can look like. So if you're in a relationship where there's no, I'm not saying kiss in front of your children or I don't know, do something naughty in front of them, but at least hug, peck, let them know, gist, laugh, play together. Not the one that you don't be serious every time. How are you? I'm fine. And all of that, right? Play. Let your children see that you guys play because you are modeling what a relationship should look like and they will learn from you. If they don't see that closeness, that's what they take with them and like, okay, this is what a relationship should be. And then they go ahead and maybe go and traumatize somebody else's child. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely
But
understand.
exactly. But we model these things for our children. So back to again, navigating all of these things. If you have support system, please use it.
Yeah.
Establish routines. That's another thing. If you don't really have support systems, even if you have, please try to establish routines. Let your kids have bedtime and things like that. You know, they have a bedtime. If your kids go to bed, everybody has eaten, your kids go to bed by 8, you and your husband, you and your wife, you know, all of you still have time to be together, you know. You and your wife have time to be together, you and your husband have time to be together, time to spend together, you know, and enjoying each other. You know, so having a routine is very, very helpful to the couple, you know, to being able to create and carve out time for each other, right? And I usually will say this, please, as much as possible, as often as possible, please take your baby out of your bed. If your baby's in your bed or in your room, please take your baby out of your bed, take the baby out of your room as much as possible. But even while that is happening, what we used to do is when my baby used to sleep in our room in the cot, because we won't want to have sex when she's there, we would, when she's sleeping, we'll now come out of the room and go and do a quick one in the living room and come back. But again, remember what I said? I was committed and
Right.
I was motivated. I'm also someone who I mean, I'm very motivated by my pleasure, right? I will not keep quiet if I don't enjoy something. You understand?
Yeah.
We have that relationship that supports open communication, expression, and all of those things, right? So being in that space, we would just okay, go on, yeah, in our room, okay, it's okay, sleep. We'll just go somewhere else and get a quick one and then okay, clean mouth and come back to you.
No, I like that you are very intentional. I like that you mentioned that you have to make a decision and be intentional about it. And
Yes.
things like putting them in routines, like taking your children out of the bed and all those
Yeah.
those things actually um, prevent intimacy from happening. If your children are in the bed for a long time, I mean, obviously, as babies, it happens, but when they are of age, it's best that they
Yeah.
go out so that you can continue. So I like that you mentioned being intentional and putting your husband first. Like that is so key because a lot of times too it's difficult for us, especially those of us in the diaspora where we tend to do more things ourselves, like we don't
Mm.
really have like people in the house and all that, so we end up being like everything. So we have to be driver, parents, cook,
Yeah.
cleaner, everything. So sometimes it's difficult to put your husband first, but being intentional about that, I think, is very important. So
Yeah.
so that both of you can be intimate and still derive pleasure. And I also
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the thing about celebrating your body, because a lot of times women, we are very quick to talk about our bodies. I mean, we just give birth to a whole human being, so of course your body's going to experience all this, but we get
Yeah.
really hard on ourselves. So I like that you mentioned that we should really just celebrate our body. And then, of course, if you need to work on things, feel free to work on it in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we
I
have
just
a
sorry, I just want to add to that. Honestly, where there's a will, there's a way. And I do understand the challenge with couples in diaspora who may not necessarily have support system. And I just want to share this because even when we started to have kids, we didn't have help or anything like that at the beginning. Do you understand? So we still had to find a way around it, where there's a will, there's a way. But yeah,
yeah, that's I mean that's
it
what
might
it,
be tougher, but again.
and I think that there's a season too, like there's a season where you may not maybe when baby is still a baby, the first 3 months it might be tough, but then that season will end and then you can move into another.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So be patient.
Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so another question. How do you approach sex when your spouse has cheated before? And even though you have forgiven them, you still you still have a hard time being intimate because of the infidelity. How do you get past the infidelity?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a very tough place to be, because with infidelity, it's a violation of trust on so many levels, right? And knowing that your spouse has been with somebody else, sometimes we get like flashbacks, not flashbacks, but replays, and they're thinking, preoccupied with it, and all of those things. But this is one of the things I find that happens with a lot of people, even though my specialty is not infidelity recovery. One of the things that I find that happens with a lot of people is that people have not been allowed to process their emotions properly, but they are expected to keep having sex. Do you understand? And so something happens, you find out, and then this person is in a state of, oh my God, how did this happen? What is this? And then the what's it called? The person who was unfaithful gets to a point where the person is like, tired. And you've asked me this thing over and over again. You're like, well, I'm tired. I don't want to answer. And then some people start to get to a point where they're even stonewalling. So this person cannot even get the closure that they are looking for. This person cannot even get the answers that they're looking for, but they are forced into a space of, oh, 6 months has passed now. You self, it's okay. It's okay. Your own is too much. 6 months have passed. 8 months have passed. 9 months have passed. But there's no time frame to it. There's no, you cannot dictate somebody because the person is grieving the loss of trust, the loss of safety. You can't dictate how a person grieves. You can't say there's a time frame, and by the time you have done 3 months, 6 months have passed, you should be over it. No, you don't do that. And then people are forced to forgive or forced to say that they are forgiven simply because they want to make the other person comfortable. So what I find that happens a lot is that people have not really processed their emotions, but they're just in a space. We're living together, we are married. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Let me just forgive, but the pain is still there, the hurt is still there. And usually what I would recommend is please see someone who can help you process the hurt that you feel. If you can do it alone, if you can do it in couples therapy or something, please see someone to help you process the hurt that you feel, because all of those things have to happen before you even get to the place where you're like, I want to really get back into the groove sexually. Do you understand? Because some people start to have sex prematurely. Oh, maybe he went out because I didn't do something. Maybe he went out for this. I mean, and these things happen for different reasons. Not that any of them is justified, because again, these are choices that people make, right? But some people then get into the space of, oh, maybe I must give him more sex so that he doesn't go outside, or give her more sex so that. But even then, their minds are not ready. They haven't processed. They're not in that space yet. But they're trying to use that as a band-aid when there's a deep gash. Do you get what I mean? So what I would say to people is, please don't, it's not about rushing into sex. It's not about rushing into forgiveness. It's good to forgive. But please, let's understand that people need to be able to process the emotions, the loss of trust that they are grieving, the loss of safety, and all of those things that people need to be allowed to process those things, and come into that space in time. So I don't think it's something people should force, right? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I guess this is also kind of related. For someone who was sexually raped and had a negative sex education, how do you change your mindset?
All right. So in this, let me disclose this. So a bit of self-disclosure here. At the age of 15, I was raped when robbers came to our house. about four of them. So I was gang raped by about four robbers, right? And then at the end of the day, the last one now pushed me back over the fence and then told them to leave me alone. But I was gang raped by four of them and I was 15 at the time. Now, of course, it was tough and all of those things. But one of the things that helped me was I've always had, I told you that I've always been interested in sex from a very young age. I've always had, I never had a negative perception about sex. And that's one of the things that helped me because I could understand that sex wasn't the problem. It was the way the people used it. Do you understand? Because you see situations where sex is used beautifully. Couples, they're happy, intimacy, sex is sex. And then you see situations where sex is abused. People use it to hurt, to harm, and to control. I mean, sex is abused in so many ways. It's the same, it's sex. It's still sex in both cases. But it's not about sex, it's the people and how they chose to use it. And that's one thing I had at the back of, that's one thing I understood instinctively, that it was not sex. Sex is sex. What changes it is how people use it. And so the person who's been raped, I want you to understand that it is not about sex. It was about how those people chose to use it, right? Sex is not the problem. The people were the problem, right? And I understand the far-reaching consequences and impact of trauma. I've lived through that. And I would suggest that if that's something that you're still dealing with, please, you need to work with a sex therapist to help you process the trauma and deal with it. But what I can say here on this program is I need you to understand that sex wasn't the problem. Sex was not the thing. It was the people and how they chose to use it. That's the problem.
Well, I echo everyone in the comments. Thank you for being transparent with us and sharing that with us. And apologies that you had to go through that, but we also appreciate your I guess mindset as relates to sex because you're able to separate, the action behind it. And
Yes, with people.
so I think that's key to people who might be dealing with this, like separating, how it's being used and the actual sex, in two different buckets. And I know it's difficult, and thank you for mentioning to see a sex therapist to help you work through that. So we appreciate you sharing. Okay, more questions. We have so many more questions, but we're going to try to get through as many as possible. All right, so next one is related to oral sex. So we've had um, a couple questions on oral sex. One question was, and I can't find it now, but it says, if I keep giving and I'm not receiving, should I stop? And then the other one says, if one person enjoys oral and the partner is not doing it, but the one that is enjoying it, it's doing on them. Should that person that is doing all the time not stop?
So
Yeah.
very interesting. Okay. All right. So, I mean, there are different schools of thought when it comes to this. There's a school of thought that, okay, well, if you're not receiving, why are you giving? Right. But I've also come across people who genuinely enjoy giving. So, giving is pleasurable for them. So, just that the pleasure, I mean, just giving oral sex, they feel pleasure from that. Right. And so, if you're that kind of person, you stop, it means you're robbing yourself of some pleasure as well, right? But if you're the kind of person who is giving out of like duty, let's just do it, let's just do it, right? You can decide to stop. For me, I'm not really big on tit for tat. For me, right? I usually would say what you focus on will grow, right? If you focus on that oral sex that is not happening at the detriment of other good things that are happening in your relationship, in your sex life, that's where all your focus will be. So it would be like, if only we were having oral sex, this sex life would be perfect. But you likely are having other good things that you're not focusing on. Again, it comes down to you to choose to stop or to continue. It's up to you. It's fine, but whichever you choose is fine. But the point is, fixating on that one thing that is not happening, it can be important to you. I get it. I get it. Right. But if the person is not willing to, or the person is not doing it, you can't force the person to do it. But here's what I will say, because I get this question a lot. When somebody says they don't want to do a particular sexual act that, a partner enjoys, one of the things I usually will ask is, what is the objection? Do you understand the objection? So somebody says, I don't give oral sex. Somebody can say, I don't give oral sex because of hygiene. Somebody can say, because I think that it's the genitals, it's dirty. Another person can say, I don't give oral sex because this my spouse, gone, 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 is a dirty person. It's hygiene. Like, do you understand what I'm saying, right? And that person can say, it might be about my faith, right? I feel like I feel convicted in my spirit and I do it. I don't feel like it's right. At the amount that we used to pray, Jesus, we pray.
Is that an excuse sometimes?
Some people have that. Some people feel like that. They feel like it goes against their faith, even as Christians. There's some people that feel that way, right? And some people feel, oh, I read it somewhere that if you give oral sex, you're going to have cancer of the throat. Or do you understand that kind of thing? And so if you understand the objection, you can refine it. It doesn't mean you'll be able to change their mind, but you can refine it, right? So someone says, oh, I think it's dirty and stuff. Do you know that your washed genitals on a good day is cleaner than your hands?
True.
Your hand touches everything, yet your spouse will come over and right? So sometimes you can have that conversation, and sometimes even send articles, show them. In fact, there was this couple. The lady was not open to oral sex. Hers was even faith, right? And she was like, no, I don't think so. And then the husband wanted it, and then, you know, the husband started to say, okay, please, I hope you don't mind. I just want to be able to share resources with you, right? Even though it's not something you want to do. I just want to be able to share resources with you. So he would share resources with her. Sometimes she read it, sometimes she would not. I mean, it took her a while to start reading them, Sha, but he didn't stop. He would still share, but it wasn't pressuring her, but he would, share now and again. And then over time, she started to read them. It took about a year, but she got to that point. He didn't pressure her or anything. He did it very respectfully, and she got to that point. It can work. It can happen for some people, and for some people, it might not happen. Do you understand? And if it doesn't happen, I mean, sometimes you're going to live with that, right? And focus on the things that you already enjoy together. But if there's room for you to refine that objection, perhaps sensitize them to maybe an erroneous thought or belief that they had, it's very possible that you can change their mind.
I like that. So
But in the absence of that,
is there anything that can be done either from the woman or the man to help them enjoy giving? Do they need practice? Do they need books? Like how can we get comfortable and enjoy this thing?
if it's somebody that wants to give, yes, those things are doable. If someone that doesn't want to give, I mean, if the objection is not about enjoying it, you understand that necessarily will not address their own objection. But someone who enjoys it, for instance, I love edible lubricants. Some of them are sweet. You forget that you are licking a penis, or you forget that you're licking a vagina. I think you're licking a lollipop. They're sweet. So they taste good. So a good number of them taste good. So edible lube is really nice. Some people like to use, things that you have around the house, like honey and stuff like that. So that can help you, and that can help enhance the experience for you. So it's not, it just basically changes the taste, enhances the experience for you, and that can feel good. But edible lube, yeah, edible lube I'm a big fan.
So, I mean, one of the questions was also, this can be a little gross for those who are listening, regarding like swallowing versus spitting because they're doing oral sex. So, like, especially
Yeah.
for ladies, is it dangerous to health to swallow or not?
Yeah. So again, if the person you are with, if your spouse is clean, no STDs or anything like that, no diseases or anything like that, there's nothing wrong with swallowing, right? But I find that with a lot of people, it's about the taste of
Mm,
it. So some people don't like to swallow because maybe the taste, the smell, there's that, right? And you're not mandated to swallow,
right.
right? I know some people find it more erotic where, you finish the whole blowjob and then you swallow, you drink it like Ribena. Some people,
I wish it tasted like ramen. Sorry.
some people find that, act more erotic, like you're taking the whole of me, and you're not, some people say you're spitting, you're rejecting me. People are different interpretations, right? But then again, this is regardless of what the person is saying, what is comfortable for you? Because honestly, I believe that sex should be comfortable for both parties. It should be comfortable, you should feel good. It should not make you feel like you have violated something that you didn't want to, you violated yourself in any way, or you've done something you didn't want to do. You should feel good, you should feel comfortable, right? So it depends on you. If you want to try swallowing, it's fine. If you want to spit out, I mean, it doesn't have to be conspicuous. You can have like a napkin or something or towel close to you where he comes and then you just spit it out or stuff. Or even while when he's about to come, for instance, if you're doing it on the man, when he's about to come, right, you can decide to take your mouth off and then you can use your hands to stroke him through. Right. And again, using that edible lube again because it feels slippery. You understand? And so having used that edible lube, the penis is slippery, your hands are slippery as well. And then you use your hands to stroke him through, instead of using your mouth, instead of him finishing in your mouth. And sometimes, we have people who are also very respectful of each other and say, okay, if you're not okay swallowing, it's fine. I'll just let you know when I'm coming, and they can just tap it that, okay, they're about to come, and then you can switch to something. So, I mean, all of these options abound.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and very practical ways as well. All right. If the wife doesn't enjoy penetrative sex, which I think you have kind of mentioned, but enjoys other options, any tips on how to have mutual pleasure during sex? So I assume this question is saying like other
Yeah.
things other than like penetration. What are some?
Okay. Yeah. So, I think we mentioned this, stroking each other, playing with each other, the breast, hand jobs, oral sex, all of those things. But as a matter of fact, now the jury is out on this one, but I've seen it a lot. So, research has told us that about 75% of women will only orgasm from clitoral stimulation, right? And not necessarily from vaginal stimulation, and they might not necessarily enjoy it and feel much. I
Mm-hmm.
hear that, but I've worked with so many women and achieved this with so many women who come in and say they only enjoy clitoral stimulation. And by the time we're done, they're enjoying vaginal stimulation, they're enjoying orgasms with penetration. So research says one thing, but I'm saying with my experience,
Mm,
right? I've seen it happen over and over again because I take these clients through different kinds of exercises like over time, right? And it's different, it's night and day. So I'm not a big believer that women cannot enjoy penetration, but of course that's
that's
another
it.
conversation. Do you understand? Exactly. But the thing is, even with penetration, some of the very simple things that you can do is okay, I was going to say this. What happens is if a woman doesn't really enjoy penetration, if the man has maybe gotten her to orgasm or pleasured her before he penetrates, what happens more often than not is that she switches off mentally because she feels I don't enjoy it. And so even mentally she's shut down. She's just like, okay, let's just do what you have to do and let him come, and she just be touching his body. Okay, let me just be encouraging him.
Men, we don't do that. Men, don't. This is Miss Olawunmi talking. I don't do that. My husband is listening. Please continue.
Okay, sorry.
I'm joking.
So there's that. So people tend to shut down, right? But one of the things that I also know is when you open your mind to the possibilities of pleasure, like when you're in your body feeling sensation, right? And you are maybe letting him engage other parts of your body. So instead of you shutting down during penetration, can he engage, if you like breast touch, can he engage playing with your breast as penetration is happening? Can he engage playing with your clitoris as penetration is happening? So that you are not entirely divorced from that part of the experience, but you are still enjoying pleasure, even though it's not directly from penetration at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Which you mentioned that, we talked about this earlier that even if your husband has ejaculated, you can still reach your climax. Like,
Absolutely.
no, it doesn't have to be only penetration. So I think, just learning about the different things that, do you also have a book about other things that you can do other than
So
penetration?
the same book I told you about, the same book, it's just, for lack of a better, is action packed. Let me just,
That's why Amazon doesn't want it because they're not sure
oh my
direction
God.
this book is going. Okay, awesome. And which, thank you for, sharing all this because one of the questions actually asked, like, are you taking on new clients? Because some people actually want to know if they can reach out to you, which we will share information later. But are you taking new clients?
Yes,
And they can be virtual, meeting.
yes. A lot of my clients are virtual.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's keep going. We have a few more before we wrap up. Um, all right. Okay, so this one is a little bit sensitive, and I actually enjoy sex, but I can't bring myself to have sex often with my spouse, and it's a big issue between us. How can I bring myself? The question just went to. Okay, how can I bring myself to have sex more often? This is a woman that mentioned. So I actually enjoy sex, but I can't bring myself to have sex with my spouse often.
Okay. You remember what we said about the responsive person? She sounds like she might be responsive. So she sounds like the person that doesn't think of the party, but when they get to the party, they enjoy it.
You enjoy it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So for someone like this, you want to find out what are the things that put you in the mind space for sex, right? How can you become more sexually attuned, right? So as women, for instance, as women, we like compliments. You want to say you look nice and all of those things. When I was getting ready for this session, I called mom and said, babe, come. Look at me now. Right?
Lipstick. Sorry. Continue.
Exactly. And more often than not, we're not necessarily also doing that for the men. So we're not as visually as attuned to them as well, right? And men also want to feel good. Your husband wants to feel good as well. So even attuning yourself mentally to your husband can even help to elicit sexual desire in you. You look at him, you look nice and all of that. God made you on a Sunday. Look at that butt.
I like that.
Right? You're playing with him, you're having fun. You are looking at him, not just as, and this brings me to, I like to say this thing about mental states, right? So if you're primarily looking at your spouse from the angle of this is the father of my children, this is mother of my children, right? If you're primarily operating in that mode, it makes it hard to be sexy. If you're primarily operating in this is my spouse, why functional, I cook for you, you bring money, but all of those things. If you're relating predominantly in that mode, it makes it hard to be sexy. But if you look at your spouse as your lover, there's a difference between daddy and a zaddy. Oh my God. If you're operating in lover mode, your spouse will come back from work. The person will be happy to come home because we're going to gist, I'm going to play, I'm going to get a food drop. Even if it's a glass of cool water, the person gets it when they come back and they sit down and then gist and say, as we are talking, let me be massaging your body for you. And then the other person to reciprocate. You're just having fun. In fact, if you look at each other as lovers, the way you even wake each other in the morning will be different. No, wake up. It will be, baby, wake up now. You'll be rubbing his body or rubbing her body, like, wake up. Like, do you understand? If you're operating, so one thing I find is that a lot of people are operating in different mental states, but not so much the lover mode, right? Even when you go to work, come back, you're stressed, the kids, all of those things, right? I usually would tell a lot of my female clients, look, not just for your husband, but for yourself. You have to have like a transition ritual that takes you out of whether it's work mode, mommy mode, or whatever, into lover mode. You need to be able to sit inside your body and settle down, whether you want to take a bath, whether you just want to lie down, turn on the AC, or whatever you want to do. You have to have a transition ritual that calms your body down and that can lead to, that can put you in the mind space for pleasure if you want it. Do you understand? And not just because of your husband, but even for you, with all these good things that we have, we must enjoy pleasure, my sister. So, so I tell that a lot too. My friend, you need to have a transition ritual so that because if you are operating in lover mommy mode, and then you see your husband and you say, you did not pick up your shoe, you did not pick up, same thing you're telling your children, you're telling your husband, or something you're telling your children, you're telling your wife, because again, you're still in that mental state. You have to be able to consciously transition. And then when you are with this person, you are in soft lover mode that, hey, come, let me change your life. Let me enhance your destiny.
I wish your husband was here because I want to hear his perspective. I think the same. Well, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I like what you mentioned about the transition ritual because sometimes it's very difficult to switch that off, or we forget. No, very difficult. I think, like personally, I forget because I'm just
Yeah.
so into work, children.
Yeah.
What's next? What am I doing tomorrow? Versus,
Exactly.
settle down. And I like that.
And like I said, it's not even about the husband. It's not even just about sex. Even for you, to become someone that pleasure is a habit for you. Pleasure comes easily and pleasure can be anything, right? Even if you send yourself flowers, it's part of it,
Yeah.
right? You are eating and then you take your time, you are eating slowly, it's part of it. And experiencing what is happening is part of it. Do you understand? And so, because a lot of times when we are moving stress, you sleep, next is stress, your body is holding a lot of stress, even for you, even aside sex. Your body is holding a lot of stress.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And this is probably one of the last questions we're going to have for the evening. Unfortunately, we're so sad that this has to end because we've learned so much. I have learned so much
Thank
from
you.
this conversation. So thank you. How do you compensate in a relationship where your one partner has a higher sex drive than the other?
Okay. All right. So that's something that happens a lot with a lot of couples, right? Again, I want to go back to that anticipation, experience, motivation kind of thing, right? Because sometimes if the experience is not good, why would the person want to have sex? So what is, and I usually will say this, when there's a discrepancy in desire, right? It's not that one is good, one is bad. No. Because if you have, for instance, if you have low desire and you're married to one that has low desire in quotes, right? You don't have problem. Both of you are okay. If you have high and you're married to one that has high, you don't have problem. Both of you are okay. The problem is not because somebody's high and somebody is low. So inherently, none of them are bad. It's just that they are mismatched, right? And because sex involves a lot of things, it's so nuanced. Your emotions, your day, your routine, your life, your schedule, all of those things, right? How do you so what I find is that for a lot of people, the what we say low libido is masking. So aside from the fact that some people are responsible, they don't even know, that's one thing, right? There's even the fact that for some people, what we call low libido is just masking under a whole lot of things, whether it's stress, whether it's just, feeling resentful about being the one doing everything and the other person not carrying their weight as much, whether it's you're tired, whether it's traffic, whatever it is, whether it's work, it's a lot of things mask as low libido, right? So more often than not, I want to look at what exactly is going on in your life because it's called sex life for a reason. Your life, whatever is happening in your life will affect your sex life. Sex is not in one bubble that even if your life is in upheaval, sex will just be, okay, don't worry, it's okay, it's okay. Sex is part of your life. And whatever happens in your life influences your sex life. So more often than not, I want to look at what is happening in this person's life and how can you start to make room in your life, not just for sex, but for pleasure.
Mm.
Did you get? So more often than not, you find that it can be masking behind something else that needs to be uncovered, right? And honestly, I think that couples, yeah, aside from the usual, we say communication, trying to find out what is going on, and all of that, I would recommend please see a professional if something like that happens. If you're experiencing desire discrepancy, please see a professional because it's easier to unmask stuff that way, right? And then it's easier to see what exactly is going on beneath the surface.
Awesome. There was a question that came about the transition. Sorry to take you back there. The transition ritual.
Okay.
What are some examples of what people can do to do the transition ritual?
Okay. So
For
for some people, they just want to take a bath and just relax in the tub and take a long bath, right? It may not be long, again, long is subjective. For someone, long can be 10 minutes, for some 30 minutes, so whatever it is for you. Sometimes some people just want to take a quick bath, lay in the bed, put on scented candles, and just enjoy, right? For some people, it's just they're laying down in the bed and they can tell their spouse, please just give me a back rub. I just need to relax and be in my body. Some people want to take walks. So different things for different people. Whatever floats your boat, look, explore, and just do stuff like that. I remember at a point in my life, I used to be so stressed that even though I like sex, I'll be so stressed. I'll be so stressed. I'll be like, oh my God, I couldn't. And then one day I came back from work. It was funny. And so I can say this because I'm on a church platform. And I guess I can even say it anyway and stuff. So I used to think that you must pray before you sleep. So that day I came back from Holy Spirit said, who told you you have to pray right before? So you come back from work. What says that you come back from work and it's like 5, 6 o'clock? Everybody's at home. What says you can't just gather together and pray for the day, right? And so I did that, prayed, and I took a walk and I came back. And then he just says, just lie down and relax and just breathe. And then there's some breathing techniques that I use. And then I was just breathing and I was so relaxed. And whatever it was I wanted to do after that, I mean, the floor was open, right? So there's different things that you can do, as a transition ritual, just whatever comes easy to you. It doesn't have to be, I don't want it to be another task, just whatever comes easy to you.
Okay, awesome. As long as the goal is transitioning from
Yes.
Stress mode too.
Oh, yes, lover mode.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been amazing. This has been such a great session. We really want to thank you for your time, for everything. People are putting hand claps in the chat.
Thank you.
People
Thank
want your
you.
books, they want to be in touch with you, everything. So for everyone who has joined today, we will be sharing, her social media handles. We will get more information about your books as well and how we can get it. So we'll reach out to you concerning that. But again, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for
Thank you.
accepting our invitation. Before we wrap up, we did want to ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So whatever answer comes to your mind as I ask you, just spit it out.
Okay.
So morning or evening for sex?
Morning.
Okay. Quiet or loud?
Ah, loud.
I feel
How to express
like lights on or off?
both.
Okay. Music or no music?
I love music.
Oh, okay. Um, okay, so outside of sex, tea or coffee?
Tea, definitely tea.
Pool or beach?
Beach.
Okay, so jollof rice or fried rice?
Jollof. But
I
some fried rice are very sexy, sha, so yeah.
I'll be that way. All right, iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone. iPhone. iPhone.
All right, Hollywood or Nollywood?
Hollywood. Sorry, I'm sorry. Well, Hollywood, Hollywood. I'm
Wow,
sorry,
I think
Hollywood.
for sure thought you were going to say Nollywood.
Nollywood.
Awesome. Final one, dining out or eating at home?
I like eating at home.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I
Awesome.
like eating at home. I like going out too, but I love hotels. I love going to hotels. I just going to, but I like eating at home. I'm a bit of a homebody too.
Awesome. 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 Thank you so much. We will wrap up. Thank you to everyone who has joined this evening. We are so grateful to you all for attending with us. We will be closing out. For those who have asked about the recording, we will be sharing this as well with everyone who has registered so that you can watch the replay. So we're going to close out with a closing prayer by Pastor Eru. Pastor Eru, are you able to unmute?
Yes, 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 yes. Mrs. Esan, thank you so, so very much. I have enjoyed myself the whole time. I lack words to say thank you to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank
And I also
you.
wanted to
Plenty.
say thank you to Jesus House Marriage Ministry. This is awesome. I'm telling you. It affords people the opportunity to ask questions that they wouldn't ask openly behind curtain. And thank you for the answers that have been given. We enjoy them a lot. After a session like this, I think it's difficult to pray because what will you pray for? But then we have to pray. So, our Father in heaven, we just want to thank you. We want to honor you for the privilege of you teaching us through your daughter. Thank you for the questions that were answered tonight. Thank you for everything that was shared tonight. Father, tonight begins a healing to those who have issues in their marital life concerning in the area of sex. Today is the beginning of a candid discussion of moving sex forward in every marriage. And above all, today, Lord, begins a new wisdom of how we can spice up our marriages, particularly in the area of sex. We are so grateful for every word that you've enabled us to share. Lord, tonight as we go discussing, as the healing begins, as the wisdom to improve comes upon us, Father, we ask that change will begin to happen upon our marriages in the name of Jesus Christ. Take us to a higher level in our sexual areas. Give us the understanding, the ability to speak up, particularly to implement some of the nuggets that we've had tonight. We honor you because improvement, joy, new beginning, healings will begin to be birthed in our marriages anew in the name of Jesus Christ. We thank you for your daughter that you have used tonight. We ask that knowledge of the things that she does not know now, but that will bring her more exposed to the entire world, that you will grant unto her in Jesus' name. We give you praise. We give you glory. In Jesus' name, we have prayed. Thank you so much, Ms. Esan. And I appreciate that you selected the iPhone, because it's an argument in my home, and I'm an iPhone guy. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, and have a great night or great morning, Ms. Esan. Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank
Bye,
you very much.
everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.